everyone, I'm Brenda Murray and this is Studio 56, and today I'm going to be presenting a watercolor and perspective demo by the amazing Seattle urban sketcher and architectural illustrator Stephanie Bauer. If you're new to Studio 56, you should know that in addition to hosting free interviews and free demos with artists, we also produce a large selection of online workshops, and we organize travel workshops in gorgeous locations all around the world. We have tickets still available for workshops coming up this year in 2024. We have a few tickets still available for a workshop in Edinburgh in July with Kosha Kuna. We'll be in Paris, of course, with the wonderful and amazing Stephanie Bauer, September 19 to 23. We still have a few tickets available. And we'll be in the French Alps in September with Renato Lahal, in Brittany in September with Hazel Sohn, and in Malta in November with Alex Hilkerts. If you want more information about those vacation workshops, please go to the website, www.studio56boutique.com. And now let me tell you a little bit about Stephanie Bauer. Stephanie has a background as an architect. She is an architectural illustrator, an art instructor. She's an avid traveling urban sketcher and the author of Understanding Perspectives, 101 Sketching Tips, and this huge tome, The World of Urban Sketching. Look at that. It's a compilation of a lot of urban sketchers' sketches and insights, and it's a fabulous, fabulous book, gorgeous. And so today she's going to be demonstrating how she makes her sketching magic. And so let's bring Stephanie into the call. There she is.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. At least in Seattle this morning.
Welcome, Stephanie. Good to see you. Thanks so much for being so generous to do this free demo today.
My pleasure.
So nice of you. So tell us what we're going to be seeing in this free demo and why you chose this subject in Paris.
Wow. Well, there's a lot in this demo. We cover a lot of material. Really, it's like two workshops in one, because not only do I talk about the perspective and analyze the perspective, which is my specialty, of course, and part of why I do that is because most demos that I see skip all that. They don't really explain how and why perspective works. So I actually talk a good bit about that. Then we do the drawing, and then we do the painting. So it covers a lot of territory. I explain a little bit about the tools I use, and anyway, there's a lot packed into this for sure.
There is. And why did you choose the Place des Vosges?
Well, I was in Paris last year in June, and I in fact did this sketch. This was the first one that I did. It's the first one in my sketchbook. I'll hold it close.
Yep. Beautiful, gorgeous.
Thank you. I was freezing. Had to go buy a jacket and a vest and everything. But so I thought, it would be great to explain fountains, because a lot of people don't really understand the mechanics of how to draw a fountain. So that's what inspired it. And I'm super excited about going back. When Brenda asked, where do you want to go? I was like, Paris, because Paris is heaven. I say this in the recording. Paris is heaven for architectural sketching. So I'm really excited to get to go back again and teach in September.
Yeah, it's going to be super cool. I'm excited too. We have a great program set up for that week and all the highlights and Stephanie's fabulous teaching. It's going to be a great week. I'm really excited, really looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is a full demo, you guys. Honestly, Stephanie's been very generous. You're going to learn a lot, so I hope you have your notebooks out to take notes. Here we go. It's going to be fun.
Bonjour. Today, I'd like to show you a demo that explains how to sketch fountains. It's inspired by this sketch I did on a clear and frosty morning in the Place des Vosges in Paris last summer. I was in France to teach a workshop, which I'll be doing again this September, and I cannot wait to go back. Paris is heaven for sketching. But today I'll break down the process of creating a sketch like this, starting with a perspective analysis of the view, something most demos skip, but I feel is really in many ways the most important part because it's the whole setup for your sketch. Then I'll explain the anatomy of the fountain. Then we'll apply that analysis to drawing the view in a sketchbook. And finally, I'll paint the sketch in watercolor. We've got a lot to do, so let's go to Paris. Okay, this sketch I did on location, of course, but today we are in fact going to be working from a reference photo. And it's a photo that I took just after I finished the sketch. And let's look a little bit at this photo. So here we have this beautiful fountain in the corner of the Place des Vosges. There's another version of it in the background here. And there are in fact two more because the Place des Vosges is a square and there is one of these fountains in each of the four corners. All right, let's talk a little bit about perspective. The part that a lot of demos skip because I think people have a hard time figuring out how to explain it. In demos, I like to put a piece of tracing paper over the image to mark it up, but you can use an iPad or any kind of tablet, even your phone app on your the camera app on your phone to do markups as well. I have a lot of workshops where I explain, and classes where I explain the difference between 1-point and 2-point perspective, but I'm just going to say that this is going to be a 1-point perspective. And it's because we're looking straight ahead at the face of this building. And for example, this roof line reads as a true horizontal line. Now, this side is in fact diminishing into the distance. This part is closer to me. This part is farther away from me. Things that are farther away in perspective are smaller. So this is diminishing. So that same roof line that we see as a horizontal line here is in fact angling down. And if I take my trusty triangle, my straight edge, and extend that line, it comes down to here. Parallel to this line, because we can see it here, is the rooftop. So let's take the rooftop and extend those lines. I'm just aligning my triangle up with those edges and then continuing that line down. We can do the window tops, right? All of these form horizontal lines as well in elevation, but now we're in perspective on this side and it's vanishing down. And we can see that those points, those lines are in fact, this one too, are in fact converging to 1 point in the distance. Now that point is on a line, back up. That point lives on a line that's at my eye level. Now often people refer to this line as the horizon line. But I, in fact, don't use that term because I can't see the horizon. What is the horizon? It's literally where the land or the sky meets, the land meets the sky or the ocean meets the sky. And, we can't see that here. If you're at the beach, you can see it great. But in the middle of Paris, you can't see it. So instead, I like to use the term eye level line. Eye level line and horizon line are in fact the same thing. If you go to the beach and you're staying in a hotel on the 23rd floor, look out the window and your horizon will be up at your eye level on the 23rd floor. It's an interesting phenomenon, but it's true. So your eye level line is always at the height of your eyes above the ground, which means this was my head. Okay, this is kind of bad, but that's my hair. My shoulders, taking the picture, right? My vanishing point is directly in front of me. My vanishing point is directly in front of me, and my eye level line is, of course, at the height of my eyes above the ground. Now, this is, in fact, going to apply to how we draw the fountain. And let me show you how. Okay, if I were to diagram a fountain, I would basically have something like this, a center line, and then a series of ellipses that are symmetrical about that center line. Then we get another one here. And this is the rim of the basin I'm drawing, not the bottom of the basin. So something like that. Because in plan, that's a circle. And then we get the next basin here. And then the topmost basin here, and then the little spout is somewhere in here. And so it's all a circle with the different shapes of the different bases centered on this point in the center, which here in perspective becomes a line with 3 ellipses, right? A circle is seen as an ellipse in perspective. So, so that's important. Now, if I add in my eye level line, which is, as we noted, was a little higher than halfway up, I'll put that in blue. Let's take a look at what happens. I want to draw the edge that's closest to me. So that would be this edge right here. And that is here. Now let's draw this edge that's closest to me. And that one is here. And this one is up here. So notice that below the eye level line, we see into the fountain. At eye level, shapes and lines flatten out to a flat line. But then above eye level, now the the curve is angling down. So it's doing down, down, flat at eye level, and then up. And I sort of made up a term for this that I call cup up or cup down. And again, this is your eye level line. So I kind of explain it as below eye level, we get a cup. Not very well drawn, but I think you get the idea. And we can see into the cup. And then we have eye level, our eye level. And then above it is what I like to call cup down. We can't see the coffee or tea that's in that cup, but you'll notice this edge angles up, cup up. This one angles down, cup down. Those are the edges closest to me. So let's look at our image. We get here. Here's our cup up. And this one is cup up as well. And then I can continue this back here. And this little edge here. So we get cup up, below eye level. These start to get flatter and flatter. They're foreshortened. The closer they get to eye level, if we were to see a line at eye level, it would be completely flat. This is very close to flat. This is very close to flat. Now let's continue this ellipse. And we get cup down above eye level. Then we get all of these are little ellipses as well. And then we get this edge here. And then of course it's all symmetrical about a center line. And yes, I draw those things into my sketch. And it stops here at the center of the fountain where we have, well, it's faceted, its pieces are straight, but it still kind of forms an ellipse. And we even get, I don't know if you can see the little splash marks where these spouts hit the surface of the water. Those are all in an ellipse as well. Something like that. So those form an ellipse too. So again, if we go back to this diagram, it's basically a fountain like this is basically a stack of ellipses about a center line.
One more thing I want to point out before we start drawing is I want you to take a look at these little lion's heads that are in fact spouting the water. Okay, so that forms an ellipse as well, and you'll notice the spacing here and here is pretty wide, and then it starts to get narrower and narrower. Less and less space in between the lion's heads as this shape rounds the edge. And that is because when we look at something that's round, let's draw it first as round. Okay. Round shape. Eventually one of those will be round. And then I have the lion's head. There's one in the middle. And then there's one here and here. They're equally spaced in plan. But what I see, if I stand here and look straight ahead, if I put it on something like this, I get one here, and here, and here. This applies to domes as well, columns, all kinds of rounded forms. But you can see why this distance gets less and less. That's about the same, less and less. And that's part of why the shape reads as rounded, is because we see these elements here that in fact start to go behind, and we see less and less space between them. Okay, so that's pretty much the analysis of the perspective and the fountain, a stack of ellipses about a common center line. And then above the eye level line, it's cup down. Below the eye level line, here I'll write cup down. Below the eye level line, it's cup up. So it's important to know where your eye level line is for many things in drawing, but in particular in fountains, so that we can understand why these shapes appear the way they do. Okay, let's start drawing. All right, let's start the drawing. I have added these lines here to create a big shape, because the way I teach perspective is I always suggest that people start with a big shape first and then add their vanishing point and their eye level line. And those are the 3 steps for setting up their perspective. And once you have those 3 things in place, your drawing is you could just basically fill it in. I could start with a big shape at the back, but I find it difficult to pull those lines forward accurately in space. So instead, I've shown a triangle here that kind of describes the big shape of this fountain, right? It's a triangle with a wide base, and then a center line here, which is tilted a little in the photo, and I'll probably draw it straight when I transfer it to my paper. But this distance is the same as this distance. This distance is the same as this distance. So it's helpful to, in fact, draw in that center line. So let's get set up in the sketchbook. I've got my mechanical pencil, 0.5 millimeter with 2B lead in it, so it's nice and soft and dark. I'm going to draw in this Pentalic Aqua Journal. This is the type of sketchbook I used for the original sketch. It's 10 inches by 7 inches. It's a size and proportion that I really love, because you can break it up into multiple shapes on the page. I can do one long one, as I did at the Place des Vosges, or a big one here and a big one here. So it gives me lots of versatility. Let's slide this over and tidy up a little bit. And let me make sure you can see everything. And yes, I believe you can. Okay.
Let's start by putting in the big shape, that first big shape we have. Lightly in pencil, I call these lines construction lines. And I think compositionally, I want that vertical line to be about here, maybe. So a little bit more than a third of the way across. Let's put this one nice and low and approximate that triangle in here. No, you know what? I'm going to slide it over a little bit more. This is the beauty of the light lines at the beginning, the construction lines. No, I don't want it in the middle. It's hard to find that sweet spot sometimes. All right, let's try that. All right, then the bottom basin is going to be here, and it's pretty wide. I want these two ends to be symmetrical about the center. So let's see if I draw here. It's a little deeper. Again, lots of light lines at the beginning. Rounded edges. Let's make sure that these are the same. And they are. They're the same. I love it when that happens. Okay, lots of lines in there. One of those is going to be the accurate one. Then the next one is maybe, oh, wait, let's draw a triangle in. I want to sort of approximate this angle here. So it comes to maybe here. And then, oops, I missed the point. There and here. The next basin is going to be inset a little bit, and oh, my hair, yeah. Maybe in here somewhere. It's not touching the outside line. And then the next one actually extends a little beyond it. And then we get this spout at the top. So there's that. The eye level line is going to go in about, well, a little more than halfway up this space. Then the vanishing point, look at that, is right about on that edge, maybe right about there. And that will give me, here I'm looking at this relationship of this roof line to this edge. Oh, that's going to be very low. That's in here somewhere. And then we get a bit of roof here. Comes down here, a little space. Let's put in a guideline there. Another piece of roof. And the third roof. They might actually be bigger than that. Let me find my eraser hiding there. Let's do it a little bit bigger. And then here, oh, and they come up. I'm just blocking it in lightly, and I can always change it. Back here, here's our roof edge. We get a chimney, a couple of chimneys. And then let's get in just a couple of windows for scale. And those line up here. It looks like we get 4 across the facade. There's a little window here. And a little window here. A bigger window here with a little pointed cap. And I just darken those in. There's another line here. Same thing happens here. Little window here. Pointed window, dormer here, and here, and then here. It's just a little, so I can just literally put dots to represent those windows. Then they continue on down vertically as well. So here I get, and for this, I'm going to draw little tiny window panes. Why? Because the window panes, in fact, tell us something about, they're too close together, tell us about the era in which the building was built, and it helps with the sense of scale. And I'm a little off here. They don't align perfectly, but that's okay. And here, this one looks a little better in terms of spacing. I think there's one in the middle here too. And they're just little dots. I'll hold up my sketchbook so you can see it. See a little here, another. So here. There, hopefully you can see the little dots for the windows. Vanishing point. I'm not even going to bother drawing this side in, but I am going to put some of the vegetation in. So let's get these trees. Oh, this up here. Trees here. And then they hit this spot. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and then start to come out in perspective. And then the bottoms are right about at eye level. And then there's some walkways here. So this is all the trees with some trunks and probably a shadow underneath. But I'm just going to leave it like that for now. All right, let's start to draw in this fountain a little bit. And this is the tricky part, drawing ellipses. It's a good thing to practice, actually. Let's see. Let's get the outside first. You'll notice I draw it in the line in segments. It makes it way easier to draw. And your eye just connects them. Okay, that's not so bad. Then let's get the upper edge of the cup up, just right inside that ellipse. Turns here. We get an inside edge here. It comes around and disappears. Okay, is that enough water? Maybe a little flat. I think I'm going to keep it for now, though. Doesn't matter if it's exactly the same or not. All right, let's draw this one. Now we're cupped down. And the ellipse would come all the way around. But I'm going to show this little edge here. Notice how I show these edges as rounded. They're coming around. I see a lot of people sketch domes and fountains and things like this, where in fact they draw it like this with kind of a point at the end. And that doesn't feel rounded to me. So I usually try and show a little bit of the return where it's rounded. And often there is kind of a molding there that comes out like this and does in fact curve back around to the backside. Here, I'll complete that. So you can see it's a rounded, not pointed. So that's correct. That's not so good. All right, so I'm making sure it's rounded here. Then I get the bottom of the basin, which comes in and down here, shape something like that. It's pretty shallow, actually. I probably have it too deep. I'll use my kneaded eraser. There. And then the next one is, let's take this off so we can see it a little better. Now I can slide that out, see it a little better. So then this one is even more rounded because it's higher above our eye level line. And I want it to be symmetrical and nice and rounded. Then there's an inside edge here. this little line here, and then this base. And it sits on a type of pedestal, so we can start to draw that in. We got another little ellipse here, and it comes in like this. It's got a waist, looks like a vase. And these are all ellipses as well. Yeah, I think it's actually a little wider. Can erase it and correct it. This is the ellipse. Something like that. And then the basin comes down like this. Something like that. We've got the little spout here with the water coming out. We've got this rim here. So we can start to suggest that shape. This one, we've got a spout here, and then another one here. And then they get closer together as they get closer to the back side, and we'll repeat it over here. There are the spouts. Now let's see, we've got this here and this shallow shape here. Let's put this support in. These are ellipses also. It's pretty wide, and then it's got a little narrow waist. Then it has a base here and here. Notice I've transitioned from cup up to, cup down to cup up. And I want it symmetrical about the center. It's got to hit down here. Let's correct that. And here, base here, and then it comes down here. There's a piece there and a piece there. And there's a shadow coming across. It's here and here, and the back side. And I am going to erase this out, the back of the ellipse. It's a little wider, actually. I'm going to end up putting a shadow here. That's also an ellipse shape. And so there's pretty much the shape of the fountain. Is it perfect? No. Is it believable? I hope so. There, put that in. I'm going to turn it on its side to check it. And it's close enough. I can turn it upside down and look at it. That can be helpful too. I'll usually check my shapes before I start or during the process of the drawing. Okay, let's add in some water. Well, we can see here that there's this kind of glass, almost like a glass upside down shape here for the water up here. And then there's also some wind blowing. So I'm going to lighten these lines a little bit. And let's draw in some water blowing in the wind. Now, I like to, I mean, my sketches all have a lot of drawing in them because I love the drawing part. So I even draw in the water, and it helps to remind me to leave whites. So we get water here. It's coming over the rim. In fact, I'll lighten that up too. Coming over the rim and blowing in the wind. It turns very spotty towards the bottom. And yes, I am going to paint around all this. At least I'll try to. And here, there's some more water. Kind of curving off to the right. All right, and here we get, now the next basin, we get these little details here. Can add a little bit of that. It helps to give the sense of roundedness. And let's do these spouts. So we're going to get one here. The center one is coming almost dead center. So let's draw a light line where that is. And then this next one has a little bit of a curve to it. And there's more of a curve at the top, I think. And then it comes down straight and hits the water. This next one is a little more curved and comes down. Then this one, they start overlapping each other. Here. I'm making sure they hit my ellipse at the bottom too. There's another one right there too, but they're so close together. And then there are the ones along the back side. There. And another one here. And so on. Let's do this side now. Here it comes out. Actually, let's give this a little bit of a blowing feeling too. And here. And here. During the drawing part, I sort of go into this trance. So it's hard to remember to keep talking. There. And let's just make it blow a little too. And then there's some along the back side. And so on. Hitting this ellipse, ellipse, ellipse. Okay, something like that. Now when I paint it, I'm going to keep these, keep these areas white. And I'll give them a little sense of flowing water here. This one is important. Some splashes. Hopefully I'll remember to paint around those. And so on. Okay, what else do we have? We have, my ellipse is a little flat relative to that, but I'm not going to bother to change it at this point. So we have a walkway here. And then it comes back around here. And this is green. There's another walkway in the middle. This is where I use my triangle. There, we're going to get some shadows underneath the trees in the distance. Then some trunks here. This is a curve coming out here. And there's a bit of a curve here. We could, in fact, kind of fake this and extend it here so there's a little bit of a curve there too. Walkway here. I could put those people in. I think I'm going to end up with a big shadow here that kind of aligns with this shadow. So there's going to be a shadow back here. And let's put in that angled tree trunk. And this is going to be all green. And we're going to use that green to pop out elements of our fountain. So in fact, I'm going to extend, here, give it a nice irregular edge in the drawing. There's our tree trunk. And I think I'm going to bring it out a little further to help pop forward the fountain. So that's going to be here, that's going to be here. Let's maybe put a couple of people in. Now that woman was just about at my eye level. So she's in here. Put a couple of people. Here's this guy sitting without a shirt on. I can assure you it was freezing. I had to go buy a coat. So it was really cold. I don't know what he's doing without a shirt on, honestly. All right, this is going to be here. And we're almost done with the drawing. This is all going to be green down here. Maybe a few more hanging leaves. Sky in here. Oh, you know what? I am going to round it more. Now that I start to draw it in, I see that I want to change it a little bit. For that, I'm going to turn it this way. So I want it to be a little lower. Let's see if I can get it. Just a little more rounded. And this comes down here. It's not much of a difference, but a little bit of a difference. And the top. And you see I'm still drawing these lines in segments. It's helpful to draw long lines in segments. Okay, that might be a little bit better, but I need to bring this down a little. Make some splashy marks. Okay, I'm just going to leave it like that, and let's get ready to paint. All right, let's get set up to paint. I just want to do a couple of more things to my drawing. There is, if I go to the vanishing point, there is that little fountain that's in the back, and I don't really want to ignore it, so I'll just suggest it here. And I also want to erase my triangle so it's not distracting. There. And a lot of these lines will kind of disappear a bit once we start painting. Okay, there's the building. I'm gonna bring the green back this way too. Materials. I have, of course, the Pentalic sketchbook. I have 2 containers of water. I have a little bit of test paper. I have my Sketchers Pocket Box by Winsor Newton. Then I put in my own colors. These are French ultramarine, cobalt blue, manganese blue, which I'll use for the water, Winsor Newton burnt sienna, permanent alizarin crimson, yellow ochre, Daniel Smith New Gamboge for a bright yellow, Daniel Smith Pyrrole Orange, Daniel Smith quinacridone burnt orange, which is fantastic for dropping into shadows to make them glow, cobalt teal blue, I believe that is. This, I forget what this is called. I never use it. I'm not sure why it's in my palette. And then this is permanent sap green. And this is the palette I use when I travel. Those of you who know me know I love Escoda brushes, and I'm going to use 2 today. This is probably my all-time favorite, the Escoda Perla size 12 travel brush. And next to it is the Escoda size 12 versatile brush, which is their synthetic version of a Kolinsky sable. So it's a softer brush than the Perla. So I use this for smaller areas and details, and this for bigger areas where I want kind of a bigger wash. And then because I'm doing this recording and I don't want to do this to you, I'm only going to use half the brush. So how handy is that? There. Okay, let me wet my paints. Oop, forgot one more thing. Paper towel. I always have a paper towel in my left hand for emergencies, and to be honest, it's a bit of a security blanket. So I can see my drawing's not the same as this, but you know, in the end, no one's going to be comparing it to the photo, so what the heck. All right, let's wet the paints. I just use my brush and dab a little. Some people spray, but I find the water goes everywhere, so I don't tend to do that. And I'm going to slide this up. I hope you can see all of this. I'm going to check my camera in just a second. As I wet this, let me check the camera. And yeah, you can't see the full area of mixing, but at least you can see the paints and some of the mixing area. I think that should work. So, okay, first thing I'm going to do is wet the paper, and I want it to be very precise around the fountain, but the rest of it can be really soft. I kind of want these pieces, these buildings to recede into the distance. So let me put some water up in the sky. It's going to come in like this. And especially the roof, I think. So my paper's wet. I want to be very careful around the water. And while it's wet, I'm going to work on some sky. So I'm going to take some cobalt blue. Let's get a little bit more. And drop it in. This is all going to be painted. Oops, that's why that's there. Okay, get a little more cobalt blue. Drop it into the sky. I want it to be precise. Ooh, it's really wet. Technically, you're supposed to let the water soak into the paper before you start, but I'm what's called an impatient painter. So I kind of don't do that. Maybe I'll pick a little gray up, mix that in, maybe even a little bit of yellow ochre, just to give it a little variation. I can lift up the sloppy areas, and I want it to be soft. Let's put a little more. I'm just picking up whatever's left on my palette. A little more in here. Some clear water at the edge for a soft edge. And I'm going to paint that more accurately later. We do have that little bit of light down here. And I'm going to put this in some lighter green. I'll define that a little bit better a little later. Down there, here, and I can see a shape that's bugging me, so I'm going to lift this out while I can. All right. While it's wet, let's paint some rooftops. And for that, I'm going to use French ultramarine and burnt sienna. And it needs to be kind of a bluish gray. So that's about what that is. Let's start to paint some of that in. Trying to paint around the water. That's the water in the fountain, that is. And let's put a little more blue in. I want it to sort of settle down here. And it comes across. Then the next one. And I want it a little softer over here, so I'm going to lift a little bit of it out. And also while it's wet, I'm going to add do a little bit of the facade here. So I'll pick up a brick red color, my burnt sienna, maybe give it a little gray, and I'm going to just paint in between here. Painting around the water. There are areas that are white for the stone, so I'm kind of trying to suggest a little bit of that. I want there to be a little bit of light on that surface. So there's that. Let's go ahead and do some green. So for that, I'm going to start with my French ultramarine, to which I'll add some sap green, which is such a bright color you need to knock it back with, or I choose to knock it back with its complement, the burnt sienna. And let's see, a little more. Let's see, what's that color? That's probably okay. It's a little too diluted. I need a little more pigment. You know, at the beginning of a sketch, or a painting, you do large areas with very watery, diluted paint. And then as you continue on, you put more and more pigment in it that's less watery. All right, I'm trying to paint around that fountain and leave some little spots of white for sparkle in the vegetation. I can pick up a little yellow, drop that in to vary it a little. This is very wet. Here, let's bring it around here. A little darker. All the way back here, painting around the water. And over here, I'm going to drop in some straight up French ultramarine. You want to vary the color every ½ inch or so. That's what makes watercolors sing, is when you get that variation in color and they kind of mix on your paper. It's so nice. And this needs to be a little darker. Let's get it a little darker. More blue. And drop that in. Want it to be good and dark. And let's add a little bit over here, over that yellow. Okay. And a little bit of the trunks. Those are dark. And I can actually go ahead and put in the shadow underneath. It's the same color, more or less. I'll bring that through the fountain. And there, that's pretty good, I think. So I need to let that dry. While it's drying, I think I'll work on this. Here, I'll lift this up so you can see it. There you go. So it's soft in the distance. And, but I want this to be dark. And, okay. Actually, let's go ahead and put some of the grass in. I'm going to take the green, mix it with some yellows and brighten it up a little. And then I'll drop some other greens into it. So let's see, where does it go? There's a grass plane. Actually, I'm going to switch to my finer brush now. Okay. Picking up my yellowy green. The big areas. Well, now I'm working smaller areas, and so it's darker paint, thicker paint, and smaller areas. I do want some green in there, though. And a little more of that yellow. So there's some green. That's kind of nice back there. We have that walkway here. Let's pick up some of that yellow as well to get that walkway in. I'm very carefully painting around the water. There. Whoops, I've already painted into my walkway. Let's put some green in there. And let it mix on the paper. There's a little more green down here, I think. All right, that'll do. Let's put a little bit of that color over here. A little more yellow. And back here, there's grass. So you'll see my grass is yellower, and that's just a color choice. I don't really like that super bright green too much. All right, here. much green in there. And I'm very carefully painting around my water. That's just, I'm going to put that all the way green. Because once I paint over it, I can't really get it back. I could use a white gel pen, but I find it doesn't look quite right. Here. Let's get that green so that these work going behind the fountain. And bring some of that dark paint over here. Okay. Now, this is getting closer to dry. Let's go back to our bigger brush and start adding a little more darkness into this. You can see where this really pops the water out nicely. Now it needs to happen over here as well. So I need to mix up some nice dark colors. Let's go for, here, I'll hold this up so you can see it while I mix. And I'm picking up my French ultramarine. Let's throw some sap green into it and some burnt sienna. And a little more green and a little more blue. I'll also just drop in some French ultramarine into it, and let's get a little bit more yellow over here in case we want to drop that in. Okay, there are the colors. Put that back here. All right, let's see what happens. I'll start at the top with a little bit of yellow, which I've already got some yellow there, and that's too much pigment. Oh, it's pretty bright. Let's lift some of that out. I take that back. All right, let's try dropping in some green where it's wet. And I'm trying to sort of mimic the texture of the vegetation, of the leaves. Some just sort of hang off in mid-space. And that needs to be darker. This really needs to go dark. Now I'm working carefully around the fountain, even with my big brush. Painting around here. Leave some little sparkles. Let's pick up some straight up blue. This really will set off everything in this sketch. If this part doesn't work, I'm in trouble. And here. I really want it to settle down. In fact, I have a little box that I often put underneath my paint so that gravity helps me with my painting. And the colors kind of settle. It needs to be darker. And in there, that's a little better. And now I can paint around the water a little bit more. And this is really detailed work. I don't know if you all know Michael Reardon. He's an architectural illustrator and painter out of San Francisco. He had the Gabriel Prize, which I also had. And his project, he's so smart, his project was to paint the fountains of Paris. So he is a pro at painting fountains. I mean, they're just absolutely gorgeous. If you don't know his work, I really suggest you follow him online. And if you get a chance to take a workshop from him, it is absolutely worth it. He's fantastic and a master at painting fountains, and he did not use masking fluid. He painted around all the water just like we're doing right now. So there and here, a little more around the backside there. Needs a little more green in it because it needs to match this. So it looks like it's the same thing behind there. And I still have a little white strip, but I think I'm going to wait and put something else in there. There are a few spots. Okay, now that has to dry. So I'm going to actually use a blow dryer because I'm in the studio and it's gray and humid here in Seattle. So I'll blow dry it and then come back. Okay, we're back. The painting is dry, more or less. I'm going to pick up some thick paint and just define a few little spots, especially around the fountain. So let's see here, this edge, need a little something there. And a little more green in here. Let's add some green over here to define this side. And I really, really want to leave some whites and some little sparkle. But I want to get that sense for the water. And I'm cheating a little bit and bringing the tree over a little bit more, but it's just such a useful thing to do when you're trying to pop out something that's white or light. There's the tree. And down here. And I think this is okay. And that, let's just clean that up a little bit. And let's paint that light yellow in here. Oh, needs a little bit more yellow. Nope, I need to clean my brush. Now I got some yellow. There, so it looks like that continues through. And you put a little gray on that tree trunk. There. A little bit back there. Okay, that's a little better. I am going to start on the fountain in just a second, but let me switch waters. So I got a clean water. I'm going to make a dark gray that I'm going to put into these windows in the background. So again, I'm going to my burnt sienna and my French ultramarine, Winsor Newton French ultramarine. And let's just darken these windows a little bit. And I'm not darkening the whole thing, I just kind of want to suggest it. I still want white in there. That adds a little bit. Okay, that actually helps quite a bit. I don't really have that fountain very well defined back there, but I'm not going to worry about it. And I guess I could add a little bit on the chimneys. Nope, that's too much. And that's too little. There, little chimneys. Okay, let's talk about the fountain. I'm still going to paint around the water, but I need to get the underside of the basins in and this kind of pedestal support, and then a little bit around the rim here. And then the last thing will, in fact, be the water. So for that, I'm going to make a brown, sort of a warm gray, almost a brown. And that's okay. I'll add a little yellow ochre to it. That's something I discovered on my recent trip, is that I needed a little bit of yellow ochre in my grays in France and in England. It really helped. Okay, so I'm going to do the support, and then I'm going to drop in some yellow ochre and maybe a touch of quinacridone burnt orange to get the underside to glow, because we're getting light coming down, hits the ground and the water, and then bounces back up to the underside of these basins. So in fact, I'll start with the yellow ochre and then see what happens. So I need some here. There's the water. And there's a little bit up here. You can kind of see that support through the water. I'm still leaving a lot of white. Now I'm going to pick up some gray and drop it in for variation. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave that as water. All right, let's get the pedestal. Go back to my yellow ochre. This is really tiny detail work. If my sketch were bigger and I weren't working in a sketchbook, then I could, I wouldn't have to be so precise about it, but this is pretty tiny. All right, I think on the underside of this basin is where I'm going to drop some quinacridone burnt orange. So I'm going to go back to my yellow ochre again. And let's put that in. All right, I'll drop in a little quinacridone burnt orange. I can get a little bit, just to get a sense for it glowing on the underside. Let's bring some of it down too. And I'll go back to a little bit of my gray. I'm going to help define some of this with the gray as well. Around those lion's heads. And I painted through some water, so I'll see if I can lift it out a little. I want some quinacridone burnt orange. It's not glowing enough yet. That's a little bit of a glow. Then we'll go back to the gray. And there's a shadow here I'm going to try and paint around. And leave some water there. Got a little green. I'll pick up some yellow and drop that in on this back side. There's the shadow. And there, I think I'll leave it like that. Let's do this rim at the bottom. I'll mix some gray again. And this is the part where you're nodding off, aren't you? All right, get the inside here, and let's get the outer edge here. And then I'll drop in some yellow ochre just to make it a little less dull. Let's put in this gray here. There. Okay, maybe a little more definition in here. Nope. It's not quite dry enough yet. All right, and then there's going to be a shadow back here. It's coming along. I think I'll put a little bit of gray down here and across here, into which I'll drop a little yellow ochre. Hopefully it'll look like sunlight. And the fact that it's bleeding into the paint at the ground doesn't bother me at all. Okay, so now it needs to dry. So I'm going to stop again and dry it. All right, the reason I needed to dry it was because I'm actually going to erase some of my pencil work out to get that water. So let's see, hopefully it's dry. And look, we see more water. And then I can go back and add a little more definition in spots to the fountain, the structure of the fountain. But look how the water comes out. Even the little spots. There. Okay, whoa, that's so much better. All right, let's use the fine brush and add a little bit of definition. And again, I'm going to make a gray, a warm gray, a little more pigment. Let's see, there's a line here and a little shadow on the back side of the lion. So we've got that. We've got put a little shadow in here. And I'm not going to actually put those lines in. Well, maybe I can suggest it. Let's try. What the heck? Take some yellow. I hope that helps. I'm not sure that it does. Oh, wow. There it is. Here, I need to erase a little bit here too. Maybe I'll put a little bit of gray there. There. Okay, now we're going to actually work on the water. For the water, I need really clean water and brush. I'm going to clean my palette just a little bit. And for the water, I'm going to use mostly manganese blue, and then I'll drop cobalt blue into it to deepen it in places. I'm again going to try and leave whites, especially where the water hits the surface of the water in this lower basin. So here we go. Let's put some manganese there. I could pick up a little cobalt teal blue, but I like the manganese. And let's see. So I mostly still want to leave the water white. I mean, you look at the photo and the water is really pretty white, but I am going to add a little bit of color. That's too much water. A little bit of color in places, especially on the back side, because it needs, just like, you know, our brains kind of want to see a little bit of blue in water. There. Not much. I'm just kind of putting it on the back side. Well, that's probably okay. Then here, again, just a little suggestion, still leaving it mostly white. See what that's doing? Here, I'll lift it up so you can see. And I'll keep going. So especially the back side, because I want those to recede a little bit. And that one's in the back. This one's around this side. Still mostly white. Just a touch of color. I'm almost doing too much already. Dab it. All right, let's do the surface of the water that we can see in this cup up basin. I'm going to do horizontal strokes and try and leave white. I could do some little swirls around where the water hits the surface. Again, I'm trying to leave lots of white. We can get some reflection here. I need to work fairly quickly because I still want to drop in some cobalt blue. There, these are coming down, hitting areas of white. Here, pick up a little more color. And while it's wet, I'm going to drop in some cobalt because the sky gets reflected in the water too. And also it's a way to deepen that manganese blue nicely. All right. Horizontal strokes. Little vertical strokes here at the reflections. And this I want to lighten up a little bit. And hopefully that's okay. I'm going to put a little bit of a shadow on the backside here. That's not dark enough. All right, I'm just going to leave it like that. Maybe a little definition there. And let's add a little bit into the tree as well. We're almost done. Let's add some tree trunks. Get that a little darker back there. And it's almost done. Let's add a little bit of just some green dots, what the heck, for a little more texture. Okay, it is just about done. I need to cast a shadow back here onto the water. For that, I'm going back to my cobalt blue. And let's do that shadow. You can see it right here on the water. Let's get it a little deeper. I think it needs a little ultramarine to make it a little deeper in color. There. Goes all the way back. Trying to be super careful about it. Just a little shadow there. All right, I hope that works. And little blue, just a little bit of blue. Okay, well, I think I am really just about done. It looks sketchy. So then I always write something at the bottom to describe where I was, what I'm doing, who I'm with, what the weather's like. So I'll write demo, Place des Vosges, fountain in Paris. My name, and I usually write the date, but I'm not going to write the date today, but I'm in Seattle. So it goes all the way across the bottom. Okay, so I think that's pretty much done. Could I do more? Probably, but I don't want to overwork it, so I'm just going to stop and show it to you here. Anyway, I hope you've learned something from this demo. At the very least, something about the structure of of fountains and how they work in perspective. And if you get a chance to join me in Paris in September, that would be fantastic too. But otherwise, I wish you well and happy sketching. I hope you'll try sketching some fountains when you see them. And yeah, I hope that's good. So merci beaucoup, au revoir, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
There we go. Wow, fantastic. Thank you, Stephanie. Oh my gosh, that was really a lovely demo. People must have learned so much. I saw lots of questions being typed up there. That was fantastic. That was very generous.
Over 90 questions. in
Wow,
comment.
are your fingers sore?
Oh, no. I loved it, actually.
Oh, wow, that's great. Yep, probably some really good questions as well. I was
Mhm.
glancing up there. That's good, really good information. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. That was wonderful.
Thanks, Brenda.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Just want to let you know that we will be offering some more free demos and interviews coming up. Renata Lahal is going to be doing a free demo on Wednesday, February 28th. And our friend Gary Goretz is going to be doing another free gouache demo on Tuesday, March 26th. And also Sebastian Thoman will be doing a free landscape in watercolor demo on Thursday, March the 28th. So if you are new to Studio 56 and you want to be alerted about these upcoming free demos, please go to our website, www.studio56boutique.com. And right away, a pop-up will be there that says sign up for our newsletter. And if you sign up for the newsletter, then you will be alerted. Thank you, Stephanie. Do you have any final words for people?
I want people to know that I can see that they're thanking me in the question and answer, and I appreciate that very much. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. So yeah, a little bit of time in Paris today.
Yeah, it was lovely. All right. Well, thanks so much, Stephanie. Bye, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Thanks for the opportunity. And everyone take care.
Yep. Take care. Happy sketching.
Bye.
Bye for now.